crafty friends, it's Katie from Lady Red Crafting, and today we're sprucing up the garden with some fun DIYs using terracotta, decoupage, resin, and a touch of pepper-inspired flair. So let's jump right in. Let's take some terracotta pots and make an adorable piece for our yard. I'm starting out with 4 2-inch pots, 1 3-inch pot, and an 8-inch saucer. And I did find all of these at my local Walmart. We're going to be starting out by painting our saucer. And I'm taking this Martha Stewart silver paint here, and we're going to paint the center of our saucer. And while that is drying, I am going to go and paint my 4 little pots and the 3-inch pot. We're using our metallic green paint from Folk Art to paint these, and we're going to paint the outside and inside of these pots. Now, I did end up doing 2 coats of paint on this since I am going to be placing these outside. I want to make sure we have a nice coat on these. Next, I'm going to go ahead and go back to my little saucer here. And I am going to flip this saucer over, and we're going to paint the back side of this saucer the same metallic green. And once everything is painted on the back side of this saucer, I will wait till it is dry and flip this over. And then I'm going to take that green metallic paint and I'm going to go around the rim of the saucer. And now that everything is dry, let's go ahead and grab some Loctite glue. I got this at Lowe's and it works really good with terracotta pots. So I'm going to take this Loctite and we're going to go ahead and take the 4 2-inch pots and we're going to add them to the base of our saucer here. And you can see that I have the saucer flipped over. I'm going to position them how I would like them. Then I'm going to add this power grip to the pots and then add that to the saucer. This is going to take a little while for it to dry, so I let this sit overnight. So the next day, I went ahead and I flipped this over, and this is what our little piece looks like. I'm going to take this piece outside, and I want to go ahead and seal this right now. And to seal this, I'm using Rust-Oleum Clear Enamel. And now that our piece is sealed, I'm going back into my craft room, and I'm grabbing my fragment effects, and these are little glass chips. I'm going to add them to the top of my saucer here. And I'm using the 2 different color greens that I have here from Plaid and a clear and a blue. And this just gives a really beautiful look inside of our saucer. Now, if you haven't used these before, you can find these at Walmart, and I've seen them on Amazon. So I'll put a link for those in my description box below. But I personally like to use these with resin. You can also buy a Fragrant Effects glue that you can use as well, but you'll have more of a bumpy edge, which is fine if that's the look you're looking for, but I like a smooth look with the resin. And once you're satisfied with your glass chips, go ahead and mix up some resin. I know that some of you may not have done this before, but this I got from Amazon. I have tried the resin from the Dollar Tree as well, and it works great. So if you're using that resin, you would probably want 2 A's and 2 B's to have enough for this piece. But I buy it in bulk on Amazon. So you just mix 1 part to 1 part, and you stir it together. And now I'm just going to pour this over the top of my glass chips. Now, you may start to see that there'll be a few little bubbles popping up here. And what I'm going to do to remove those bubbles is I use a heat tool, and I just go ahead and I kind of warm the resin up, and it allows those bubbles to pop so we have a nice smooth surface. And if you don't have a heat tool, a hair dryer works just fine. Next, I go ahead and let this resin sit overnight to dry. Now with that leftover 3-inch pot, I'm going to set this down onto an egg carton just to help me stabilize it so I can paint it. And I'm taking some multi-surface paint here from Folk Art, and I'm starting with the parchment paint. And I'm using a Q-tip to add little eyes to our piece. And this is just the base for our piece. I wanted these eyes to be silver, but I wanted to make sure they showed up nicely on that green. So I'm using that silver metallic paint that we used earlier on our saucer, and I'm going to add that over the top of the parchment paint. Next, I grab my multi-surface satin black paint, and I'm going to go ahead and just finish the face for my little turtle. Now we're just going to add a little bit of black to our eyes, and then we'll let this dry. And for our final touch on our eyes, I'm going to add just a small little bit of that parchment paint. I took this outside and sealed the face with the matte clear enamel. And now that that resin has cured, we're going to grab the Loctite Power Grab, and we're going to add that to the top of our piece. We're just going to make a little circle there, and then we'll go ahead and add our little turtle head. And once everything has dried, our final step is adding a little succulent plant to the top. This will just finish this whole piece off. Now I'm going to go set this in my garden. I just love how this decor piece turns out. The resin just sparkles with the sun and the glass chips, and the little plant on top looks adorable. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this content, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It really helps my channel grow. Thanks! So this season, I am doing 3 pepper pot plants, and I am going to separate my peppers into hot, medium, and mild. I'm going to take these fun little chalkboards that I found at the Dollar Tree, and we're going to transform them into some adorable signs for our pepper plants. So I grabbed myself my Apple Barrel Tuscan Teal paint, and I'm going to be using some painter's tape just to tape off the chalkboard, and we're going to paint the frame. And I found by leaving the stand on the back, it was easier for me to hold to paint these frames. And we're just going to repeat that step on all 3 frames. And once we have all of our frames painted, I'm going to go ahead and remove that painter's tape. Now I'm going to flip our sign over, and I'm going to take a screwdriver and remove that little stake on the back. I'll save that piece of wood and the screw for a different craft. Next, I grab my Type Bond Quick and Thick glue, and I'm just going to place 2 little dots of glue at the top of my frame. This is where I'm going to start by putting a piece of twine up there at the top. And once I'm satisfied with the placement of the twine, I'm going to grab my staple gun, and I'm just going to staple those into place. Next, I grabbed a lighter, and I'm just going to burn all of those little fuzzy pieces off of our twine. Then all we have left is to trim any of that excess twine, and then repeat this on the other 2 signs. So I ended up making a SVG file, and this SVG file will be available to anybody that signs up for my newsletter. Link is in the description box below. But I did this on Canva, and then I went ahead and imported it into Cricut. And once I did that into Cricut Design Space, I was able to print this. And this is vinyl, and it's permanent vinyl that I'm using for this. And all I'm going to do is for the first sign here, I'm going to say, bring the heat. And this is for the hot peppers, and we're just going to go ahead and center that right in the middle of our sign. And then we'll use our Cricut tools to go ahead and transfer this over. And if you've never used Canva to make SVG files, it is really easy. You can just design whatever you'd like in Canva, and there's a button that you can press for download, and then you download that as an SVG file. And then you're able to import that easily into your Cricut design space so you can make whatever you would like. So for this next piece, it's going to say sweet and sassy, and this is for our mild peppers. So if you don't have a Cricut, these are chalkboards, so you could use chalk or you could also use a paint pen and write whatever you would like on these little signs. And now for our medium peppers, I'm going to be making a sign that says a little sizzle. Now, because these are going to be out in the elements, I did give these a clear coat of Rust-Oleum clear enamel. And once that is complete, here is what our signs look like. We got sweet and sassy, mild peppers, a little sizzle for our medium peppers, and for our hot peppers, we have bring the heat. I just love how these 3 signs turned out. I can't wait to display these in my garden. Now, here is what they look like outside. For the hooks, I'm using the hooks that I had left over from the Dollar Tree from my solar light video, but you can also buy hooks at the Dollar Tree for these as well. Let me know in the comments below how you would label your peppers. So I've never seen these at the dollar store, but this last week I found these plant watering stakes at the Dollar Tree. So I picked up 2 of them and we're going to go ahead and make these over. I'm going to start out using my Paint for Plastic by Folk Art paint, and this is the color white. We're just going to paint the ball on this watering stake. And to get a good coat on this, I am going to need to do 2 or 3 coats of this white plastic paint. Off camera, I did add a little piece of painter's tape so that I'd have a clean, crisp line on the bottom of the ball. Next, I grabbed a napkin, and this is one that I've had in my stash for some time. I'm just going to go ahead and prep this napkin by taking a piece of painter's tape and removing the back 2 layers from the napkin. I did get this napkin at, I believe it was TJ Maxx actually for this one. Now I'm going to grab a little dish and some water, and using my paintbrush, I'm going to start painting around some of these different blue flowers on our piece. Now I'm going to take my fingers and I'm just going to tear lightly around where the water is on the napkin. And this is going to give us some little like flower petals with a faded edge on it. It's a very rough edge, but we want that on our piece because this is going to help it fade together. I'm going to do this for about half of this napkin so that I have enough flowers for our piece. While we have a moment, I'd love to share something fun with you. I'm part of a creative playlist called Everything Crafting, hosted by myself, Katie from Lady Red Crafting, and the lovely Lisa from Our Gray House. This month, we're thrilled to have Lacey from Lacey Space as our special guest host. These ladies are so talented, and the projects in the playlist are full of summer inspiration, from DIYs to seasonal crafts that are sure to spark your creativity. You'll find the playlist link right down in my description box below, so be sure to check it out. Show some love and get ready to be inspired for all the summer craft goodness. Thank you so much for being here, and back to our video. And now that we have our napkin pieces prepped, I'm going to go back to that little watering stake, and I'm placing it on top of an egg carton. And this is just going to help me stabilize it while I'm putting the Mod Podge on. And this is the outdoor Mod Podge, and I'm just going to do this in little sections. So I'm painting a little bit of Mod Podge, and then while it's still wet, I'm going over the top of the napkin with that Mod Podge. And I'm going to repeat this step until I have covered the whole entire painted area. And this reminds me a little bit like a puzzle, because you're taking each piece and you're trying to find the right spot for it on the ball. And once everything has dried, I did come back with that outdoor Mod Podge and I went ahead and sealed everything in. And once everything has dried, our piece is ready to add to a potted plant. And here is what it looks like inside a planter. I just love how this decorates it. It gives it such a fun feel. You can do anything you would like with different napkins. Here is a fun plastic water stake craft that we are going to make from a water stake from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to be using my Paint for Plastic paints for this, and I'm starting out with my red plastic paint. We're going to go ahead and just paint the whole entire ball. I did end up needing to do 2 or 3 coats of this red paint to get a really good base. Off camera, I did add a little bit of painter's tape down at the bottom just so I'd have a nicer edge. Now, since this watering ball is plastic, there is like a seam that you can barely see underneath the paint, but we're going to use that seam as our line. So I'm going to lay this down onto an egg carton. Now, using my Paint for Plastics black paint, I'm going to go ahead and draw an oval on our piece, and we're going to use that line as our center. Next, we're going to take that same black paint and fill our oval in. And going down about halfway on the ball, I'm going to take that black paint and draw a line right on that center. And if you haven't already guessed, we are painting a little ladybug. So I'm going to take some Q-tips and my sponge brush here. And using my Paint for Plastic in color white, we are going to take the sponge brush and we're going to add some eyes to our ladybug. And I always like to test out the sponge brush on something else before I use it on the piece. Now, while those eyes are drying, I went ahead and I washed my sponge brush and I'm coming back over with my black paint and we're going to add some dots. And these are going to be the spots on our ladybug. Now, to finish the eyes on our ladybug, I did use a Q-tip and I used that to add a black dot to each one of our white eyes. And then I'm going to take a paintbrush and we're going to paint a white smile on our ladybug. Using our black paint, we'll go ahead and add some antennas to our ladybug. And with the back of a brush, I'm going to take a little bit of white paint and add a little sparkle to each eye. And then we'll add a small nose. And then I'm using my Paint for Plastic pink paint, and we're going to give our little ladybug some rosy cheeks. And now that everything has dried, our little ladybug is ready to display out in our garden. She looks amazing. I just love how this ladybug turns out. Such a useful and decorative piece. Thank you so much for crafting with me today. I hope you had fun with these garden-inspired DIYs. Don't forget to check out the Everything Sunny playlist linked in the description box below for even more bright and beautiful ideas. And as always, please remember, craft more, stress less.